Hey guys, this is the Sports Hub. I'm Connor O'Gara. Week 0 of high school football is in the books, so we move on to week 1 of high school football. I don't really understand why they don't just call last week 1, but whatever, that's beside the point. If you're a fan of this show, you know that we start off with 3 stars, 3 kids in the Hub territory that had big opening night games, and we look to Loomis. Zach Clark had a big game against Eustis Farnham. They get a 40-4 win. He was a big reason why. He had 3 touchdowns. He had touchdown runs of 54, 55, and 33 yards. He and Jack Crandall teamed up to form a rushing attack that was really potent that night. They're going to look to continue to do that through the rest of the season. And then another signal caller that I look at, Connor Young of Cozad, had a monster game in that opening win against Ogallala. Haymakers kind of had to grind their way through that victory. That was a tie game at halftime, but Young really stepped up. He had a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown, and a pick 6. Colin Witovic also had a pick 6 in that one. Haymakers, we talked about it before. Connor Young even said to me preseason, he's like, games aren't going to come easy to us. We're not going to be able to beat everybody by 30. But if Young performs like that, they're going to have more blowouts in their future. And then the third that I look at, well, not necessarily an individual star, but the Collars of Arapahoe, Austin and Brennan, they combined for 6 touchdowns. They get a nice 40-29 win against Alma. That game was actually a bigger blowout than the score probably would indicate. It was 40-6 through 3 quarters, and they had already done all their damage in the first 3 quarters of that game. Those two going to need to be a big 1-2 punch for Arapahoe as the season progresses. In week 0, there are a lot of teams in the Hub territory that impressed. I call this early impressions with emphasis on the impress part. And you could easily look at a team like Amherst that put up 58 points in a game against Shelton, and you could probably pick any one of those kids for 3 stars. But we're going to look elsewhere. We're going to look at Holdrege going to number 5 Gothenburg and getting a 13-10 overtime win. I told you not to sleep on the Dusters. I said last week that Jason Hale is going to have that bunch ready to go. I think they do a lot of big things in C1 this season. I think this was just the start of it. They're a team that could really do some big things with that defense if they play the way that they did last week against Gothenburg. We're able to contain that rushing game. If they're able to do that, circle October 24th on your calendars. They face Kearney Catholic that day. I'm just saying, not to get ahead of ourselves, but circle that date on your calendar. And then I look at Broken Bow. Broken Bow gets a nice win at home against GICC. They win that one 20-8. And Broken Bow, Mike Garner admitted, he's like, you know what? I had 17 seniors last year. They graduated, and this is going to be a rebuilding year for us. But Josie Evans had a nice game. Broken Bow was able to get a rain-delayed victory in that one. Kind of a weird way to start the season, but nonetheless, it's a 20-8 victory, and they have a favorable start to their schedule. Don't be surprised if Broken Bow gets off to one of these 3-0, 4-0 starts, and they're in the discussion there. And then you look at Kearney High, what they did at Grand Island last week. I was there for that one. Very impressive stuff to be able to hang with what's believed to be the number 4 team in Class A right now. They lose that one 35-28, but I think everybody came away really impressed with Kearney High. Brandon Cool admitted his team outperformed his own expectations. That's a really tough thing to do, to outperform your own coach's expectations, but the Bearcats did it with Peyton Pocock and Dylan Nickel at wide receiver. They were able to get a couple big plays out of their wideouts. They were able to get Jacob White, Brockton Sterling involved in that game, and they were able to contain Grand Island. That's not an easy thing to do. Brandon Cool impressed with his bunch, and really starting off with a much better first game than they did last year. If the Bearcats are starting at this point and only building from it, look out for Kearney High this year. We just talked about the Kearney Bearcats. I got a chance to catch up with Kearney High coach Brandon Cool. He broke down what his team did well last week and what his team is going to have to do well in its home opener against Lincoln Southwest.
You're going to see a little bit of a different offense from Lincoln Southwest. They're more downhill, more inside run, where Crown gives you a lot of different looks and working a lot of side-to-side sweep and counter stuff. And so for us is to kind of get out of the mindset of what we did against Grand Island and pin our ears back a little bit more against Lincoln Southwest, where we're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. We're going to have to keep them in long yardage situations and keep them one-dimensional, and hopefully that's what we pass. Yeah, you're going to have to make some big plays on 1st and 2nd down to keep them in 3rd and long. They have good skilled guys. Their quarterback obviously is a good thrower, though they didn't throw very much against Lincoln Southeast. They'll throw more against us. They'll have things figured out there. But overall, we're going to gang up on that run and make them be one-dimensional. We're going to have to be consistent on 1st down. We can't afford to have any penalties. We were in 1st and 15 or 2nd and 12 a lot against Grand Island. and that puts you behind the 8 ball when it comes to play calling. So we got to shore up our penalties, number one, and then number two, you're going to have to get positive yards on first and second down. And keep us in third and short. We have an opportunity to run some play action or do some run game or some option stuff, but we'll give them a lot of different looks offensively and see if we can't find a seam in the run game.
We've talked enough about week 0 action. How about week 1 action? Then some things that I'm going to watch for: Kearney Catholic getting to square off with Ogallala. That's a long trip that the Stars have to make out west to face an Ogallala team that really had a good first week showing against Cozad. I think people were impressed with the way that Ogallala was able to contain the Haymakers. And if Kearney Catholic shows up sleepy in the first half of that game, and if they're not ready to go, that's an Ogallala team that can really hang with the best in C1. If the Stars are able to get off to a good start, that's obviously all the more important, but they need to play like the team that they were in the second half against Horde, not necessarily the team in the first half, because if they get that balance and that defense going, the Stars are capable of obviously being one of the best teams in C1. And then you look at Overton. Overton gets to open the season against Medicine Valley. A lot of questions surrounding Overton. 2 returning starters on that team. That's not a whole lot considering what they did last year. In D1, they were semifinalists. So now they get to open their D2 schedule with the D2 quarterfinalists in Medicine Valley. Paul Husenfeld, you got a tough job ahead of you. I think that they do have the talent to be able to muster up some quality wins this year, and we're going to really see how good the Eagles are in this opener. We've got plenty of exciting games in week 1 in the Hub territory to come. We're going to try and get out to as many of those as possible. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. I'm at TJ O'Gara. We got sports editor Buck Mahoney. He is at HubSports_Buck. Follow the Sports Hub blog on Twitter as well. We're going to try and tweet out as many scores as we can get across the Hub territory. So for Connor O'Gara, this has been the Sports Hub. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.